is no difference between commerce and e-commerce. I think today it's all e-commerce. With all the things we see coming down the pike with, generative AI and chat GPT, I think embracing change is going to be extremely necessary. When it comes to B2B, they are, I don't want to say afraid, but they are very cautious about changing. Be like business to business or business to consumer, as if on the other side of a B2B transaction is some actual business. No, there's a human being on the other side.
On today's episode of Barriers to Break Beyond Business, we have a special guest who has had a long and fascinating career in the tech and e commerce industry. With a computer science degree from the 1980s and experience working at Accenture, he has seen the evolution of technology firsthand. As a member of the Professional eBay Sellers Alliance, he taught eBay classes and ran over 11,000 ads, doing sales across all 7 continents. Today, as the president of ColderICE Media and the host of the Smartest podcast, he helps small and medium sized businesses navigate the ever changing landscape of e commerce with a specific focus on B2B sales. In this episode, we'll dive into his insights on the evolution of e commerce, the use of modern technology for B2B sales, and tips for SMBs looking to succeed in the online world. So, without any further ado, let's jump into it. This is Barriers to Break Beyond Business with John Lawson. So, John, a very good morning to you, and thank you so much for agreeing to come on this podcast, Barriers to Break Beyond Business. And of course, you're a pro at this. We're just getting started, so I will definitely get a lot to learn from you on this podcast with you, and really looking forward to taking a couple of learnings from you and asking you a lot of questions. I think you're usually on the other side, where on your podcast you're asking people a lot of questions and they are answering them for you. But here I think the tables have turned, and but at the onset, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, no problem, man. I'm excited. This should be fun.
John, I mean, if we could get started, if you could just take us through like your journey, what has your journey been, and how you've happened to uh, end up in e-commerce, and how did you become the person that you are today?
Ooh, that's a long story, but I'll shorten it for you. I mean, I was um, about to go bankrupt. I had done a real estate deal here in the US, and it was going sour, and I didn't have the money to uh, make 2 mortgage payments. So I had my own home mortgage, and then I had this rental property that was supposed to, make me rich, and it didn't. It just kept sucking money out of my pocket. So I was about to go bankrupt, and a friend of mine mentioned, hey, why don't you sell some stuff on eBay? So long story short, I started selling my used books on eBay, and that's how I got into e-commerce. And then you fast forward that like 4 years, and I ended up leaving my tech job, with a firm here in the U.S. and never looked back. And that's been 23 years ago. 23? Yeah, 23 years. That's crazy when I think about it. So, yes, 23. That's a short
Wonderful.
story.
Yeah, 20 years in less than a minute. So, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. But there was a lot of iterations in there, of course.
I think you've been at a time where you've seen technology evolve. You've been there through the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, the dot com bubble bursting. And I think you've seen it all. So if you could just probably take us through, I think you have, you have been involved in a lot of areas of technology and e commerce, particularly through the time. So if you could just take us through those milestones, if you have any, or if you have anything that you want to share from back from the 80s till about now.
Yeah, from the early days of the internet in the 80s, you know, I I was one who really liked to play with technology. And so that's why when we talk about the 80s, I wasn't doing anything really dramatic at that time. But I was into it enough that I ended up getting into a tech job with a company called Accenture, and that experience allowed me to get engaged in a lot of tech projects as it led up to what was called Y2K, right? So Y2K was when the year 2000 was going to hit. All of a sudden, a lot of old systems needed to be updated so that they had four characters instead of two-character year, right? So before 2000, you would say I was born in 65. Well, they would automatically say that's 1965. If you say today I was born in 2020, you need to say 2020 2020. So there was a big upgrade that had to go on before the 2020 hit, and I got to be on a lot of teams and experience a lot of things with a lot of large companies from working with that, and then going from that to my own company, my own small business on eBay, I still had to stay on top of emerging technologies and trends that are essential, for business success. So it's kind of interesting that what I focused in on as a small, one man shop in eBay today has blown up into the e commerce landscape that we know of right now. But one thing that remains the same is the need to embrace new technology. I mean, if you're going to be, and I believe this wholeheartedly, that there is no difference between commerce and e-commerce. I think today it's all e-commerce, right? I mean, whether it's you are in your, shop taking payments, you're often taking electronic payments. You still have to keep up with inventory churn, and you're using digital tech to do that. So I mean, it's all e-commerce today, and you have to embrace new technologies, or you run the risk of being left behind. So I think if I had one key takeaway right now from going through these early 80s up until now, it the only thing that has kept me uh, ahead of the curve is embracing new technology.
Okay. So, where do you think that is coming from? Like, is there a particular behavior that you would want to, like, look at? Were you always that person who used to embrace new things, or or was it the situation, right? Because I'm sure you have a lot of friends. If you just go look back, they're still, like, stuck in the 90s. They don't want to, like, look at technology, but they're forced to actually use it. You'd probably call them laggards in a way, kind of, come down and adopt technology at the moment.
I mean, for me personally, yes, I can remember always taking my toys apart when I was a child just to see how they worked. Could I put them back together? Not so much, but I still could get them apart, right? So yeah, I think there's at some level that is something that's inbred in me. However, at the same time, if you're going to branch out and become a entrepreneur, you're going to have to embrace new things. I think a lot of people have, I would say that I'm a entrepreneur by incident. Like I said, the incident was I was going to go broke and I needed more money. That's a great reason to become an entrepreneur, right? But at the same time, to maintain that and be successful, you've got to move with the times. So I think it's really great that I had that. And then also with the experience at my corporation job, we were taking on new projects all the time as the um, time ran out, right? Because at some point at midnight, the 31st of December 1999, all of these projects had to be wrapping. So we were moving in rapid development and doing things very quickly and moving from project to project, and that helped me to uh, uh, embrace change. So I think, especially in 2023, with all the things we see coming down the pike, with generative AI and Chat GPT, I think embracing change is going to be extremely necessary. So laggards, you got to get in. And the cool thing about being a laggard, you can actually leapfrog, right? So you don't have to learn how to use desktop technology. You don't have to do that. You don't have to go back. All you have to do is say, okay, today I'm going to learn mobile tech, and then just leapfrog to the front of the line. So that's one of the cool things. If you start embracing today, learn what's going on today, you don't necessarily have to go back and figure out what happened yesterday.
As I think that's a brilliant way of looking at things, always being optimistic.
Is, isn't that an American thing?
If you have to, like, share what you kind of picked up while working at the corporation, right? You have worked with Accenture and even at eBay of some sorts. Like, I'm not sure, I don't know if you worked with eBay, but I think you have been associated with them from for a pretty long time now.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
just because I
yeah.
sold there, right? But never worked in eBay,
Hmm.
worked with eBay to help with training some of their, and speaking at some of their events. So, but one of the things I think, what was the first question? You said,
Yeah,
what did
yeah.
I learn? you know, it's crazy when you just think about how much e-commerce has blown up from this little niche market to now being the way we all do business these days. Everybody is shopping online, so businesses are stepping up their e-commerce game. And one of the biggest changes I've seen is a shift towards, mobile and social commerce. I I don't think I could. I don't think any of us could have ever expected to be able to use this one device, our phone, and transact pretty much everything today. You know, and I think more and more consumers are using their mobile devices to shop, to browse, to do their social media. And those social media platforms like the Facebook, TikToks, and Instagrams of the world are becoming extremely important to as a sales channel for many businesses. So I think the trend is only going to continue as mobile becomes even more ubiquitous. I think here in the United States, we still have a mix of desktop and mobile, but a lot of these emerging countries, that is all they know is the mobile. Mobile is their computer. And I think it is very imperative, especially if you're a B2B business and an SMB business, to start thinking about how we can move and shift towards mobile, because it's that is going to be a major change. And I don't think we're talking about it enough. I think we almost feel like we're already there, and we're really not already there. A lot of, especially when we talk about B2B, a lot of B2B is not mobile ready. Just because your website shows up on a phone, that's not a mobile experience. I'm not trying to navigate to page 10 to find my product. This is something I think that a lot of us have to embrace and look forward to the future so that we can make sure that our businesses are mobile ready.
But John, I mean, why do you think B2B is left behind? Why is it that they're always taking the second step? And we always have B2C in the limelight, and B2B businesses usually are not adapting the way they should be, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things is, that the consumer themselves drive B2C, right? So when the consumer says, "Hey, I'm buying products on Facebook or I'm looking for recommendations on my Facebook feed," then all of a sudden, the businesses that are B2C move. They have to shift because that's where their audience shift is. I think uh, when it comes to B2B, they have legacy they have legacy systems that they are, I don't want to say afraid, but they are very cautious about changing because they feel as if that is going to break all of the back office, you know? And also at the same time, you've got people that are leading in management in these uh, B2B, small B2B companies that are eh, not as tech savvy as they might need to be. And sometimes they're just not willing to make changes. And I think as a whole industry, if we look at the whole industry, you see and you say, wow, that's this thing needs to be drug along. We got to drag it along to catch up with what's going on in the consumer side of things. But I also believe that they are going to miss the opportunity of dealing with consumer based businesses because oftentimes B2B, the other side of the B, is a business that sells to the consumer. So we need to start, flattening that curve. And the sooner that these guys do that, the better off they're going to be positioned for more business into the future. Because I think a lot of these tools that we're seeing coming out could actually be threats to the B2B side. And I don't, there's so many different industries inside of B2B, but I'm just saying that there's a lot of uh, things that we're seeing happening in generative AI availability that makes all of the things that were important for the back office back in the day just not that important. So if nothing else, if they take the time right now and leapfrog into generative AI, chat GPT stuff, then I think they will find areas where a lot of the things that they were doing become extremely redundant, and it could be a serious cost saver. So not only will you see an uptick in your ability to sell more, but the cost of doing business will also decrease. And when those two things are happening, the amount of profitability can be absolutely amazing.
So I think we need another Y2K moment for B2B,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Wow. That don't scare me like that. Wow. But you know what? That's an interesting. It's almost like are we at? And I think you might have something there. We might be approaching a Y2K moment for
Mhm.
B2B. Yeah, we
So,
might.
John, I think we you kind of covered this point where people, particularly in the B2B space, are very there is a lot of resistance to change, right? So, apart from one identifying that they really have to change to actually going about having that change done within an organization, what are the other, like, I would call them, I wouldn't really call them a skill set of sorts, but what do you think like, business owners or family businesses that have been running for generations have to adopt to? You think the new generation that is, coming in and taking over these businesses, you think they are the ones that are going to drive the change?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's part of that's part of the change. And that's part of the ushering in of the change is having these digitals coming into the workspace now. I mean, now you're looking at somebody that is born in the 2000s coming into your business, and these young people have been it's not like tech is a newfangled wow for them. It is the water that they swim in. It's where they're, I think about myself, and I'm aging myself here, but I remember when we first got our, microwaves and stuff, we would sit literally and watch popcorn pop in the microwave because it was such a fascinating technology. But my child today, she don't care about the microwave. That's just how you heat food. So that's the way, that's the change that will happen. And then you have to let that happen. If you are in management or you're the company owner, you're going to have to, you know, guide it, but also adopt it, right? So yeah, you're not going to just come in and every day we're going to play, Pokemon. No, that's not happening. I understand you need some, downtime, but you guide and you adopt to some of the things because there's a lot that we just don't know because we just don't know. I mean, every day I'm engaged with young people and they just kind of, I'm like, really, you can do that now on your phone? Because I'm not there all the time. I'm not in social media all the time. They could tell me stories about, you know, things that brands are doing to engage and sell more. And I'm like, really? I'm not there all day. I'm not a TikToker. I need somebody to tell me and explain to me what's the challenges with doing business there, what are the opportunities with doing business there, and if you can give me, a good SWOT analysis, of where our business would be with and without, then maybe that's the way we got to go. So, look, you've got these a new generation moving into the workspace, and every time that happens, everything changes. I mean, some of us are still trying to catch up with the millennial change, but heck, I mean, millennials are 40 years old now. I mean, those are not the emerging markets that they were 10 years ago. So we got to really take the time, look at the things, be tech savvy, and let some of them lead by example.
So, talking about the new generation, talking about children, so I think you have one baby, which is ColderICE. So, would you like to talk about that a little bit and why you had to, what thought was running in your mind when you thought of starting ColderICE?
Now that's funny because I didn't think about starting a company. You know, Colder Ice literally was my personal handle on Twitter. Twitter was my first engagement with, social media. That's way back in 2007. Okay, so I was really big on Twitter when it had less than 100,000 users. But that was my place because I had left my corporate job, and one thing you get inside of the office is interaction with other people. Suddenly I'm a solo entrepreneur and I don't have much interaction with other people. So social media was my ability, gave me the ability to interact with other like-minded business owners. And so Twitter was my place of choice. My name is very common. John is a very common name. And so I couldn't get my name, John Lawson, on Twitter. So I had to come up with something different. And that's when I came.
I think there's also a philosopher and a naturalist named John Lawson, if I'm not wrong.
There's exactly. There's a historian named John Lawson. So it's like there's just so many places that I couldn't get my name. So I came up with Colder Ice. And then people were like, well, what's Colder Ice? Well, if you notice, I kind of capitalized ICE. All right. The ICE was Internet Commerce Education, right? And then the Colder Ice as a whole word was because back in the United States, when it was very segregated and blacks could not go to white establishments, like every white establishment had either a back door for black people or they didn't service black people at all. So if it was a hotel, there was no hotels that, blacks and whites would stay in. It would be a black hotel, a white hotel, a black taxi cab service, a white taxi. It was very segregated, right? But also at the same time, there was an entire, commerce area in the black community that had storefronts where black folks would shop, right? But as soon as integration came, those black store owners would look out their store windows and see all of their patrons going downtown to shop where they couldn't shop before. And they used to say, oh, I guess the white guy's ice is colder. And that's where I got ColderICE from, because when I started this thing, I'm talking 2007, and I knew what I knew as an early adopter. I didn't think people were going to pay attention to me simply because of that, old thing of what's he know? He's just some black kid, right? Because I was a kid then, I got 20 something years on me now, right? But so I took the moniker of ColderICE because I'm like, look, my ice is colder. So that's where that came from. And then that focus moved into small business marketing and e-commerce strategies for others. And that's how the company
Mhm.
name got started and how I got ColderICE as the company. I hope that helps. That's a lot.
Yeah, that was I think, a brilliant story. That's fine. I mean, I think you actually, it's something that you're passionate about. I think you end up speaking from your heart and you really get into the depths of it. But what do you do at ColderICE? So if you can just tell us that.
Yes. I started it because I saw a need for more practical, hands on guidance for entrepreneurs who were just either getting started or, had small businesses that were not performing. And one of the biggest challenges in this space is really, like we've been talking so far, is keeping up with the latest trends and technologies. But not only just keeping up with that, but having the right strategies and the tools to make it possible so that you can overcome all the challenges that we as small business owners have. So I coach and train small business owners on everything dealing with their e-commerce
Got it. Got it.
sector of their business.
So, so in your experience, John, like, adopting to tech, I think is probably one of the challenges, other than strategizing and all of that, probably comes in a little later. So, what are the kind of challenges you see business owners going through while they have to adopt to tech?
Yeah. So I think there's some skills that SMBs kind of need to have in order to succeed today, right? Number one, digital marketing. I mean, digital marketing is absolutely essential for businesses of all sizes, right? And SMBs need to have a solid understanding of digital marketing channels like social media, email, paid advertising, and of course, creating effective campaigns that drive traffic and sales. So I think that's one of the things you got to have. You got to have data analysis. I don't think enough of us take take into account the amount of data that is available to our business to make moves based on that data. So it's more important than ever for small businesses to have the ability to analyze and then make sense of their data. And then adaptability, it's rapidly changing tech. So you got to keep up with the changing landscape. It's essential for us to adapt, be willing to learn, and have skills and strategies as they emerge. So, those three things I think are extremely important. Okay. Oh, one other thing. One other thing. User experience and UI, right? Because as we were just talking about before, just because your website shows up on a cell phone does not mean that you are mobile. The user experience and the user interface design has become extremely critical because people are not going to wait for anything. We need it like this. Everything is like that. And if it takes too long for your site to render, I've already moved on to your competitor. So there you go.
Got it. I think even more so in the B2B space, right? Because B2C, like you said, the customers call the shots and they're in like higher volume. So you will have to make your website suitable on a mobile platform or on a desktop, wherever your customer is. But for the B2B, like we were discussing earlier, that it's usually, it doesn't come as first thought that, even a person shopping on a B2B platform is also a human being, right? So I think that is something that people should start looking at, and the UI and the UX is super important even in a B2B space, right?
Absolutely, man. I mean, and you
Yeah.
nailed it. We always talk about B to like business to business or business to consumer, as if on the other side of a B2B transaction is some actual business. No, there's a human being on the other side. There's an actual person, that same person that understands what technology is doing on the consumer side. Just because, look, if I shop and I get an Amazon experience every time that I order personal stuff on Amazon, trust and believe that if you're mimicking that customer experience inside of your B2B, that person on the other side immediately gets it, and they're going to have a preference based on that experience that they're having. So all customers, are working in a business somewhere. You know what I mean? Or at least all business people are consumers somewhere else. So you got to understand that they are already ahead of us. So yes, for a minute they're putting up with our, legacy technology, but that's getting less and less, and it's getting harder and harder. And I'm seeing a lot of B2B companies struggling, and part of that struggle is because of the technology and their inability to engage with their customers where their customers are today.
So John, I think very recently you'd put out a podcast about Chat GPT, right? I think you had somebody. So since we are on that topic of AI and Chat GPT, how do you think the future looks like? What do you have any predictions? Or I'm sure you don't have a crystal ball in front of you, but if you have any predictions, or if you have like a gut feel, because you've been through the entire journey, right, from the 80s to the 90s, and you've seen the whole thing evolve, right? I'm sure that's developed some kind of a muscle within you, which probably your prediction could turn out to be right. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Okay. So this is crazy to say out loud. All right. But I've been on the planet over 50 years, right? And I don't think I've ever seen anything as disruptive as what we're seeing with generative AI. And when I say generative AI, that's not just ChatGPT. I mean, ChatGPT is a front end, a chat on top of generative AI, which is GPT. So they put them together, ChatGPT, right? But I mean, and there's limits to what can be done with ChatGPT versus hitting the back end directly, right? Um, but in this age of digital, this is not. This is not. I don't want to call it a fad. It's not a fad. It's the only thing I could compare it to is the internet. Okay, and if you think about the internet, like you said, I've been here for a long time, right? So when I first got on the internet back in the late '80s, maybe '90s, you had a dial up, and this is even before like AOL. It was very very techie, and people kind of laughed at it, and they thought it was stupid, and or they thought it was a fad. And then they realized, hey, this is something I kind of need to learn. And people would start teaching you how to use the internet. But you look today, 25, 30 years later, there's no course on the internet, right? Where do you go and say, hey, I want to take an internet course? I mean, that doesn't happen. It's become very ubiquitous with the way we use our devices, right? And I think that is what we're seeing with generative AI, is that it's going to be very ubiquitous with everything that we do. It's going to literally, the way the internet has taken over and made magical things. If you sit in an Uber, you have to understand that the fact that that Uber can come to your location is all because of the technology that is inbred into the internet, right? So all of these things that we've got today, the conversation we're having right now in this podcast is because of the internet. Generative AI is probably 10 times bigger than that, maybe 100 times bigger than that. That's where we are. We're on the precipice of something that's going to be life changing for many generations to come. And if I were to hold a crystal ball and try to tell you what the future would be like, I would absolutely be lying. Nobody knows, because you cannot tell me that when AOL was out that people would even think of an Uber or even think of a Google or a Facebook. I can't tell you. Nobody can. All I can tell you is get in now, learn as much as possible, take as much advantage of the things that are here as they come out, and you will increase your efficiency, your profitability, and ultimately your customer satisfaction by embracing these new technologies. That's all I can tell you, man.
Got it. I think
I know.
that's fine. I mean, that's
Sorry.
a valid answer because nobody can really predict the future. So, John, I think we went ahead a little bit in the future. Now, if we had a time machine and if we had to go back to the past a little bit, and we're talking to John again back in the 90s. So, what advice would you be giving yourself? What would you have done right back then that you would kind of look back upon and say, oh, yeah, I mean, this is something that I should have done right?
Yeah, I would have buy Google stock. But the one piece of advice I would probably give my past self would be to focus on building a strong brand and a strong reputation. All right. Brand and reputation are paramount for success in a business. And then the other thing on the other side, I would foster my relationships with customers and partners. And I know that these are kind of like business principles, and these are established, trusted things that you need. But when it comes to establishing trust, credibility, and a solid foundation for success in the B2B world, these are the things you have to have. So I would definitely, and honestly, I built a strong brand and reputation with ColderICE, and just people, that know me or find me and speak. I built that without really knowing what I was doing. Had I known, you know, how important this would be, I would probably be like, that would be my core focus. Strong brand, strong reputation, because the word of mouth is when, your brand really is what people say about you when you're not in the room. That's the brand. We always think branding is, like, put something on a t-shirt, right? That's not the brand. The brand is what we say about SourceWiz when SourceWiz, none of them are in the room. And that's what you want to focus in on, because that word of mouth is the most powerful thing. Because I can say things about my company, but when somebody else says something to somebody about my company in a positive way, it totally blankets over anything I could ever say about me. So I think that's something you've got to really focus in on, man, is that brand and that reputation.
So, John, I mean, what's the kindest thing that has happened to you while growing up in this industry? Do you have any anecdotes? Do you have that?
The kindest thing, you know, uh, just in general, like in my personal kind of thing. I mean, as it relates to business,
Yeah.
yeah. So the kindest thing. Wow, I never thought about this, and I'll just give it to
Hmm.
you. It's he's a friend of mine now, but he heard me speaking at a conference, and he ran his own conference in Australia. He came up to me and he said, "I want you in Australia. You're going to do the keynote." I was like, "Really? Well, I've never done a keynote and I've never been to Australia." It's like, "Cool." And I was, a young speaker at the time, and he put me on stage. I did what I do, which is pretty, I'm a good speaker. That's all there is to it. And afterwards, he sat me down and he said, "You know what? You have the possibility of being an international, highly paid speaker." And we had some drinks that evening. Him and his buddy, they sat me down and really gave me a good talking to about the possibility of extending myself as a brand, right? And I think that was probably one of the most biggest shifts that I had in the way that I looked at myself as a brand. And I never will forget that conversation. It is one of the reasons why I've put myself out there as a, I use quotes, expert, influencer, call it what you want, but they really, I just felt that they poured into me in a way that was very transformative for me, and I will never forget that moment. It was just really the coolest conversation ever.
Got it. Thank you for sharing that, John. I think we all need that person in our lives, I believe, from time to time, and not just as another business, but like we were discussing, the human connection is a very, very, very strong thing, right? We usually don't, we just take it for granted sometimes. And
But that's the power. That's the power. That there's such energy. There's an old saying that steel sharpens steel, right? So it takes one to sharpen one, that would be one of my sayings that I carry with me all the time, is that steel sharpens steel, and that's why I engage with so many people, because you just never know which one is steel. There's a lot of wood out there. Don't get me wrong, but yes, finding another steel to sharpen you is incredible.
so, John, I mean, we have this. I'm sure you've done a lot of this in the past, but we have a rapid fire that we've curated
Oh,
just for you.
oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
How does
Okay.
it feel to be on the other side of answering questions?
This is this is it's
But
always insane.
okay, this is going to be super easy for you, I'm sure.
Okay, here we
Yeah.
go.
So with the rapid fire here, so is it customer acquisition or customer retention for you?
It's customer retention, because retention is cheaper than acquisition.
Okay. Is it mobile optimization or desktop optimization?
Well, we already talked about that. Give me a break. That's not even close. Mobile.
A few high quality products or a wide range of products?
Wow. You know, there's no right or wrong answer there. Because if you look at Amazon, it's a business model. Okay, because you look at Amazon, they are the endless shelf. That's what they always wanted to be, an endless shelf, so that they could really expand their store to include everything. They are the everything store, right? But also there is a lot to be said for being into a niche and really doing something well. So it's almost like the Tesla versus the Amazon. Which one's better? I can't tell you. Tesla has done amazing things with electric vehicles, and that's all they do, right? So um, I think that, it depends on what your business model is and what you want to go after, and just be the best at that
Hmm. Okay.
thing. That's a hard one.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Credit terms or upfront payment?
Ah, so it depends, right? If which side of the equation are you on? Are you the one getting the money or giving the money? So if you're the one giving the money, then credit terms are more important, right? Because the better the terms, the more time I get to use my money to help pay back the money I owe to you, right? So that's that way. Now, if it's on the other side and I'm the one collecting, I want as much as possible at a lump sum. So there you go.
Got it. I think you will be really good as a diplomat as well, John. Probably.
I think I would, right? I think I would.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, hey, I mean, there's a use case for both.
Hmm. Okay. Email marketing or social media marketing?
Ooh, good one. You know what? I would go with email marketing. Email marketing. I like social to get them onto the email, but more transaction and higher return on investment is always in the email. So there you go.
So
Email.
you're saying social media is, I think, a good tool for branding of sorts, for top of the
It's a good, it's the top of the
funnel.
funnel. Yeah. And I think so many I'm going to get in trouble here. But I think so many social media marketing people, right, have have brought this narrative that it's all about social and selling and engagement and social is the end of the game. And I totally disagree with that. I think social is the top of the funnel, and as you get down to the purchase and upsell, and then next becomes the referral. Then that's where social comes in at the bottom of the funnel again. So it's great at the top and great at the bottom. So it's great for referring, user generated content, all of that social. It's great for getting people into your funnel, product brand awareness, fantastic. But the center of the funnel, yeah, email's great.
Got it. Okay.
Wow.
Good one. Good question. Good
Yeah, that was a
one.
that was a good
Yeah.
one. But it's gonna get me in trouble. I can hear them now.
Hmm.
Email's dead. You know how many times they try to tell you email is dead?
Yeah.
Every 5 years, email dies. But it's a cat with 9 lives.
Okay. Is it self-service or sales rep assisted model? Which one would you?
Ooh. Uh, I, I think it's self-service. Self-service, and then on the back end, if I need some help, then let me get a rep. But I think the world is moving more and more towards almost, automated interaction.
Mhm.
Okay. So, yes.
Okay. So when it comes to the deliveries, John, is it the speed of delivery or is it the cost of delivery?
Uh, on which side? See, that's both sides again. But as a consumer, it seems like speed wins, period. And it's just the faster you can get it there, the more delighted they're going to be with your service,
Mhm.
right? So, speed of delivery. Now, will people pay for speed of delivery? I don't know. I think at one point it was something that was a given that if I wanted it very fast, I would pay high price. I think that is becoming less and less common.
Mhm. So talking of e-commerce platforms, right? Is it the customized side or are you on the pre-built e-commerce side?
Um, you know, perfection in e-commerce is a game killer. All right. So if you're waiting for the perfect build, you'd be better off going with out of the box, because it's just about getting the product in front of the people, and usually the out of box experience or templates work just fine, right? So get the plane off the ground and then correct in the air.
Mhm.
That's my thing.
Okay, inbound or outbound marketing?
Okay, I'm going to say inbound, right? But that's kind of counterintuitive sometimes. But yeah, I'm going to say inbound. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it alone. Inbound. You get them to come to you, and they'll stay forever.
Mhm. So, talking of pricing models, do you think one size fits all or a customized pricing model?
You know what? At this point, as we get more and more tech savvy, customize is going to be the way to go. All right. I think a lot of the one size fit all was the easiest. It's the easiest to implement and probably the least expensive. But I think that a lot of these tools that we're talking about with AI is going to make the experience very customizable and easy for the business owner to offer. And as that becomes the case, more people are going to want it.
So, yeah, that brings us to the end of the rapid fire. And you did great.
Ooh,
And you should definitely consider becoming a diplomat as well, I believe.
okay. Okay. I will. I will do that. That's hilarious.
Yeah,
I've never heard that. Maybe there's a new career right there, bro.
yeah.
You, you want to have a drink and talk me through it?
Sure, I think I should do what your friend did back then and fly
Yeah,
you to
exactly.
Australia again. So,
Awesome.
yeah. John, I think just any parting words that you have, because I think you have, like, you bring a lot of experience and you've also authored a couple of books. And, you've spoken on various platforms. So, if there's one mantra that you want to leave the audience with, what would it be? And help us understand that a little more deeper.
Yeah. Wow. My 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 mantra, the thing that I would chant, you know, the funny thing is, you guys gave me this question as a pre-question, and I sat there and I'm like, my, what is the thing? And I never could come up with the actual thing. I don't have a mantra. I just, I don't know. You know what? This is so stupid. How about go for it? Go for it. Just go for it, right? Especially the younger you are as a company, you know, the younger you are as a person, there's only so much time that we all have, right? In general. And the deal is that as I feel my time getting shorter, right? I definitely feel like, unless I'm going to live to be 120 years old, the better part of my life, the longer part of my life has already passed, right? And as you become more and more, you get further and further in, the less time you have to make correction, the less time you have to make mistakes, you know? And so I think if nothing else, it's about go for it, jump out the plane, with a parachute, of course. But if you're waiting for that perfect scenery, that perfect experience, you'll probably wait forever. Just go for it, make the mistakes, and you'll be amazed at how much you will accomplish. Simply whether you fail or you succeed, there's a lot to learn inside of failure. Matter of fact, there's probably more lessons to learn inside of failure than there is in success. People do these podcasts all the time, and the one thing I don't hear them talk enough about is the failures, because success is actually pretty easy to duplicate if all you do is follow the trail that was already left for you by those in front of you. Success is not the hard part. Avoiding the potholes in the street is the hard part. So sometimes it's the failures that we need. Anyway, there you go.
I think I
Put that in a sentence.
say I think that's brilliantly put. And sometimes a mantra does not have to be complicated. It could be something as simple as go for it, right? And
Mm,
it's a reminder of sorts for a lot of people, I think, who are still taking things very easy to just wait for that perfect day or that perfect moment. And I think they'll just end up waiting for the rest of their lives, right?
yep,
So yeah, I think
yep.
it applies to business, it applies to life, and to everything that is around. And I think we should start going for things and stop thinking too much, overthinking. Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
I like it.
yeah.
I'm going to use it now. Go for it.
Cool. So, John, thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure having you here on the podcast, Barriers to Break Beyond Business. And we've spoken about a lot of things beyond business, of course. And I mean, your optimism and your positivity is just like, it's just flowing through. And I can see that in the passion that you have for the space and in everything that you do. Thank you so much for taking the time out and to be here with us and to share whatever you've learned over the years with our audience.
Man, this was fantastic. Thank you so much. You've been a great host. And, I can't wait to hear this, share this, and get more people to listen to your new podcast. Fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you.